Was good questionnaires. You know the voice. This is Julian, and this episode you're about to hear is a rerun. I'm pretty sure I've already gone on record saying I don't like to do reruns, but it couldn't be helped. Just to give you a little bit behind the scenes of what I've been going through. Um, my uncle passed not too long ago. My brother was in town. Um, Guests have canceled for one reason or another. Um, and as of me recording this, October 30th, 2025, the government is still shut down, and that is impacting me very directly. So there's, and I say all that to say I don't want to use those as excuses, but that is just my reality. I haven't had the time needed to really keep the podcast on the main front of my mind, which I need, which was the original plan. So I say all that to say, yeah, it's just time isn't on my side right now. Um, I but that's even with time not being on my side. I'm going to give you these last four episodes for the to properly end the season. It just going to be I don't even know it, but I'm gonna get it done. Hopefully before the end of the year. I will say with everything that uh has gone on in my life and business with the podcast. Come the next season, I'm going to have to change things up because as of right now, I can't keep it at a consistent pace that you guys deserve. So more news for that later. But if you want to support the show and just help keep things running properly, there is a Patreon. Patreon is patreon.com/ not enough questions pod. It's right here, right in front of me. You can click the link. Um, I'm not asking anyone to break their pockets. It's $2 or $5 just a month just to help support the show. Hopefully, this isn't asking for too much. If I can get 29 to 12 people to join the Patreon, that would do wonders because then you will be paying for the show, like outright, to where that would be one less burden for me to keep doing, especially in this uh moment in time for me. If you do join, there I will definitely shout you out for sure. Josh, I still see you on the Patreon. Thank you so much. There will be a breakdown of what things cost, so you know exactly what you're paying for in the future. But yeah, that's all I want to say right now. Um, I'm going to get these last four episodes on. I just need time to figure things out. But yeah, with all that said, enjoy this episode. It's a good one. Hey, real quick, before you continue, please know this episode contained more adult content and language than other episodes. If you prefer to have a less explicit episode, please check out any other NEQ episode that does not have this warning. With that said, carry on. Welcome back, everyone. I still don't know how to introduce this properly, but I am Julian. My name today is Mr. Nobody, and we have not two special guests because Tyler the Unperceived has finally returned.
I was on my
She's
really
been
long break.
out in the unperceived world all this time. Tyler, I have something for you later. But
Oh no.
Unfortunately, Tyler, you're not the star of the show because we also have Logan. Logan's here as well with us.
Hey guys.
Tyler, do you remember the question?
I'm pretty sure I do. I'm just
no.
sad. I'm sad because I don't have my banners, but it's okay. I'm gonna have my banners in the next episode. I know it. I believe in us. but,
Yes.
but I'm pretty sure our question is, what are 3 positive things about you and 3 negative things about you?
That is it. That is it right there. So, Logan, I'll let you start off either if you want to do the positive or negative first. Be your
Okay.
guest. We'll
So 3 of each.
all share at some point in time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Do how you want it. Do how you want it.
Okay. So full disclosure, I chose the questions I chose because they seemed like they were good questions that fit with my mission of why I am putting myself out there on Instagram and podcasts and stuff. But I did want to. I didn't want to just come on with like a script of like exactly how I'm going to answer these questions. So,
Yeah.
if it sounds like I'm not very polished, it's because I'm not in regards to these questions. So 3 positives about me. Number 1, I care very deeply for other people and other people's feelings. Um, okay, I'm not. My purpose is not to like with everyone. I'm going to show you also a negative, but I guess with this one it can be. The dark side of that, I call it for me. Like I call it the dark side of empathy. Is I mean, people talk about people pleasing. It can be that to an extreme, which in and of itself, of course, if I'm being unhealthy, could lead to manipulation, right? And all these kinds of things. So I care very deeply for other people, and I don't want to see people hurting. That's a good thing, but I can also really struggle with like overthinking and overanalyzing every little thing. Like you talk about, I send a text and I see that you read it, or you see the little ellipses, and I will spend like 2 hours thinking about that if I'm not careful.
Yeah.
So, that's me.
I
That's
get it
Logan.
though.
Another positive about me is I do take ownership of my crap, of which I have a lot. I have a ton of baggage, and I definitely have negative tendencies for sure. Working on a lot of progressive victory there, but I will always have negative tendencies, and I've got to do what I can to be healthy with those. A third positive about me is my wife might disagree with this because we're so we're obviously so close. Believe it or not, Carrie, my wife, I tend to find the silver lining. I tend to find the optimistic side to things. I'm laughing because like I can also be a total pessimist and I can catastrophize and like because I tend to be very pragmatic and like, well, I don't know if this is gonna work out because this, that, and the other. But like when crappy things happen, I would say I tend to have a pretty good attitude about like, well, what can I learn from this, or what's a blessing even in the midst of all this chaos, or what have you. Because I gave you one, I can have that dark side of empathy and that people pleasing. I've always struggled with insecurity, and again, that feeds into the first one, right? What do people think of me, that kind of thing. But where it can be really unhealthy is I can really struggle with wanting to feed my ego. Not because I think I'm such a rock star, but because I can struggle with that insecurity. I want to be the rock star. I want to be cool. Because for so long I felt like a loser. And so I can really want to feed that ego. So I struggle with that for sure. I tend to be very emotional. This is my third one. And I can catastrophize, to the nth degree. I struggle with anger very deeply in my life. I can just go all or nothing with a lot of areas, but especially with emotions, which obviously there's ways that can be a good thing, but if I'm not careful, then I'm going to impulsively act on whatever emotion I'm feeling, which, like in the case of anger, obviously that's not a great way to live. So that's another area where I've done a lot of work, but yeah.
Okay, I already have a question for you. So, I guess what things do you do to combat like negative self-talk, or like if you feel like you can feel yourself slipping into the more negative aspects, even of your positives, like what brings you back?
Yeah. I hugely value saying true things. Like, and what I mean by that is because like there can be a version of it, I think, of like self-talk or self-love or self-esteem where it's like kind of pie in the sky. And so like I'm not, I'll give you some examples of things. Like, I'm not saying that this is like stupid. I'm not saying this is a dumb thing to do. It's not what has been helpful for me. I'll just put it that way.
Okay.
So like, I don't write a sticky note on my mirror that says like, Logan, you are going to kill it today. You are, and again, I know people that do that, and like that's a help.
Yeah.
But for me, maybe like my version of that, and this is again where like the pragmatist in me is like, well, I don't know if I'm going to kill it, so why would I write that on a sticky note? I'm going to, I value saying true statements to myself. So instead of, you know, like I was talking to a buddy I'm here in my office talking to a coworker, my buddy, and we're talking about this I'm not a tech savvy guy. We were talking about a software that he was helping me with something. And I was about to say, like, I'm not good with technology. And I changed that verbiage to, my tendency is to easily get overwhelmed if I don't figure it out. Because I gotta remember that if I say I'm not good with technology, I'm basically putting one more brick in that wall, right? Of like thing, instead of, hey, I can work on this, but I do recognize my tendency historically has been to do XYZ.
That's good.
I definitely try to change up the way I speak about myself. That is definitely something that's a new development for me as well. Just case in point, some things that people say all the time is like when they ask you the question of how are you, and the common response is, or like what's good, and the common response is nothing much. I'm like, I'm flipping it to just a little bit, just so there's that way I stay more focused on the positive and not just say there's, to kind of reinforce like there is something good going on somewhere around me, and it's not this empty void of nothingness.
Right.
I feel like I was a sticky note person for a little bit, so that's why I found it kind of funny. But I feel like normally it's not like you can do this, but it's more like, I don't know. I feel like they're better when they're tailored towards you. So it's like what you would say to yourself, but also written out. Because sometimes I think like the act of writing something helps me think about myself in like
100%.
like a more like holistic way. I'm like really big on journaling. That's how I knew I was going through a lot recently, because I didn't journal for like 2 weeks. I was like, oh my gosh, who am I anymore? And so like sometimes like even having that like physical reminder that even shows you yourself like, oh, I haven't even been combating these thoughts in the same way that I normally do, helps me kind of come back and be like, okay, I need to go, this is my starting point. So yeah.
Well, the physical act of writing that is, I mean, it applies to so much more than just this, but it's a heck of, for me to write something out, like that really is, it's going through like multiple channels to get to the point where I'm physically writing it. Whereas I can have an impulse of thought and I can maybe go one step further and choose to dwell in it versus just having the thought. But to actually go to the point of writing it, that means that I'm going through several motions. I mean, because if I'm thinking about like, if I'm struggling with insecurity and I'm trying to put something together, which like I don't tend to be very handy. Like my wife is much handier than me generally. If I'm trying to put something together in the house and I break it or I mess it up, I would very easily have the thought of like, stupid, like I suck. Whereas if I was to write, I wouldn't write that statement. So why would I say it? Right? I wouldn't write that statement. So why would I think it?
Right.
All that being said, I don't journal, so maybe I should. I recognize the value in what you're doing.
I encourage everybody to journal. I'm like a journal fanatic. So
no, I'm exactly the same way in a sense, because of the fact that for the past couple years, actually, I challenged myself to remember the day prior. So I would write down like what did I do the next day, and just due to my situation that's been going on for quite some time, I realized there's like months that I just haven't wrote anything down, and in my mind I was thinking like I just couldn't. There was a lot going on at that time, but there's a part of me that's like, I just don't want to remember this anymore. Which I don't know how I'm gonna tie that into like me, like a negative trait of mine, but if it's negative, positive, but that I will literally just try to not think about. I'm not gonna say terrible situations, but unfavorable situations. There's a point in time where I'm like, I just don't want to think about this anymore. And even though it's not helpful, that is something that I will do. I'm like, all right, this will help me remember it. I'm not doing that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I kind of get like noticing stuff about yourself that's just kind of like not helpful to you. I think that's kind of how we recognize our most negative traits too. Like how you're, I don't know if I want to say like sacrificing yourself, but like, I don't know. It's like betraying yourself is normally how, like, I think they normally talk about it when I see like psychologists posts and things like that. Like I'm very into like self-help, self-discovery, self-growth, things like that. So I'd say that's my one. I would say that's one of my positive traits cuz like I'm constantly trying to figure out how to be better than yesterday for me though. But I think in turn that always helps you be better to others and cuz the most important relationship is yourself. So that's like that's why I guess it's always interesting to me how people kind of go back to self and like what self care looks like to you and like things like that. And so yeah, but I could also say two more positives and knock mine
Go
out.
right ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, I still have to say my positives too, but yeah, go right ahead. Go
I
right
know.
ahead.
Okay. So my other two positives, I feel like I could talk with anybody about anything when it comes to like their emotional landscape. I love learning about people, and I think I call it a positive because I enjoy when people feel heard because I've had issues in the past where I didn't feel heard or understood and things like that. So it always feeds me being able to like be that person for somebody in my life. So I would say that's another positive. And then my last positive, oh my goodness. All right. It's like a lot of pressure. um, it's like so funny. Now I'm like blanking. My last positive is I feel like I have a pretty good attitude, like demeanor and stuff. Because I had one compliment. I actually really liked it from my last job, where the girl who worked like at the front desk, like our receptionist, she was like, "Wow, I'm really gonna miss you because you're just such like a bright light. Like I just love talking to you every day." So I'm like, I love that. Like I think I bring a good energy to like any space that I'm in. So I'll say that's like my last one.
Okay. You both said something that I'm like I could relate to, and I'm trying to remember exactly what it was that it was because I even though I knew this question, we knew this question for about a couple months now. I still have not really thought about it. I actively try not to do it, but I know a positive is that I would definitely be there for the ones that I care for. Just giving them a voice. Not well, active. I say it all the time. I was like, I'm all ears all day, every day. It doesn't matter if you think you're talking my ear off. You're not. Like I actually want to be there for you. So I would definitely say that's one of my positives. Did I give another positive, or do I still have my two positives that I
I
have?
think you have one more. Wait, what was the first positive you said?
See, that's what I was wondering. I'm not sure if I said anything else, but I tried to listen. I consider this a positive of me being positive and negative actually. I'm hard headed. That's guaranteed. I'm hard headed, and the reason why I say it's both positive and negative, and I was trying not to do this. I'm hard headed in the sense of I will stick to my goal, even though no matter the difficulty, I will do the best that I can every single time. No matter, like I said, no matter the difficulty, but also being hard headed in the sense, I think we've talked about this before. There are some things that you can tell me and it just won't process to do at that moment in time. Simple case in point, I still have an Instapot that my friends got me. Maybe used it maybe once, and
Oh
I'm still
gosh.
struggling to make food on a consistent basis, even though that tool is right there for me just to use, but it just has not happened yet.
Oh my gosh. No, I remember this in one of our other episodes. I was asking him if he uses temperatures, and he was like, "No, I just cook things." And I was like, "Why would you do that?" Like, oh my gosh.
This is true. I've been caught in some type of K. Logan, do you have anything else to add to your positive, negative traits or anything? Because I have a lot more questions that we.
No, I mean, one thing about me is this is a negative is I can always talk, so I'm gonna stay shut up for right now.
Logan, feel free.
Fair.
You do not have to stay silent. But
Yeah.
what is this other question? Oh, this is a therapy question, Tyler. That's right. I've been in therapy. I'm not sure if I told
A
you this
therapy
before off the podcast,
question.
but a therapy question. This is the one. This is like a homework assignment that I got, and is how do you think you come off to others? That is with it being a whole positive thing. I'm like, how? Yeah. So how do you think you come off to others? I'm guess I'm cheating because it was my homework assignment that I asked some friends to do, but.
Oh my gosh.
How do I think?
Because I know, yeah. How do you come off to others, like to the ones around you?
I think I come across to a lot of people as, I mean, I feel like this is a really lazy word generally, but nice, as very nice. So maybe kind would be a better word. Empathetic, not empathetic. Like as I said it out loud, I was like, kind of sounds like I'm saying empathetic. But like very kind, empathetic, and humble. And if that sounds ridiculous, like as a ridiculous way to describe yourself, like maybe it is. But I do think, just judging kind of how other people have said things, that because like when I've shared my story, as we can get into, like when I share my story, like why I'm here, right, and like why I'm talking, people are generally very, very surprised, and they're like, because they'll say things like, "Oh my gosh, like you just seem like the nicest person, like I would never thought that you were this type of thing," and but also like people that know me the best, my wife, maybe in the past coworkers, I can also be very selfish. I can be very it can be very immature when it comes to joking, and it's kind of some main character syndrome sometimes. And yeah, like I can be very obnoxious at times, as part of that too. So also some positives and some negatives. I think all of that soup is how people that know me would describe me.
Well, I love how you tied in the main question too. That was good. I feel like normally when you say how you come off to people, you normally give your best traits. And so I thought it was kind of like refreshing hearing you and being like, yeah, there's like this side. Because there's the person that people see, and then there's the person that, like, only the people who are really close to you kind of get to see. And so I think that, like, the duality of our impressions and like how people see us is very interesting. So yeah.
I was gonna say, well, kind of tying into your point and Logan's point is because how I think I come off to people is not reserved. What really did, like, just a mysterious figure for the most part. That's what I think.
Like kind of aloof.
But when you that's actually the exact word someone told me, that I'm very aloof.
Oh wow.
And the same person even said that I come off, it depends on who you are to me, because I was very surprised when my brother said that I came off as, well, protective one, but also intimidating just a little bit. And I had to think about like why why would you think that? And then I had to think back into our past histories. Like, oh yeah, I guess I was not bullying you in a sense, but I was definitely a scary figure growing up. And that's not the best way to explain it, but that's just how it's coming off right now. Just growing up with me and my brother, that I would be like somewhat demanding because he wasn't doing something that I thought he should be doing. So I could easily see him coming to that conclusion. And I'm like, oh yeah, no, that is from your perspective and your history. I'm like, yeah, I can see how I can come off that way.
Yeah, interesting. I feel like I'm constantly like fighting against my self-image a lot of times. I have like a really weird relationship with how people perceive me and how I would like to be perceived. So I know that normally I come off very like timid and agreeable and like nice and things of that nature, which is like none of those things are inherently that bad. But I also think maybe because I'm also like a woman, I feel like sometimes that also brings that negative connotation where people automatically think like I'm a pushover and like, oh, you're not going to have a lot of opinions about things. Like I've gotten comments like that before, which is kind of like, it's always weird to me because the people who know me, they're like, you're hard-headed, and just, like they're like, I do not know you to be unopinionated.
Right.
It's like very funny. Oh my goodness, what was I gonna say? What else do people say? Like I do have people pleasing tendencies, so I do tend to like put people's needs over my own. So that's one of the really big things was just trying to like put my needs first because there was just so much going on. Like I was almost backed into a corner where like I had to put my needs first, or I was just gonna fall apart. And you know, the last safety net of you not falling apart is you like kind of putting up boundaries, and because you just love yourself and you can't, you know, you can't allow yourself to go down too bad. Like the world is going to keep spinning, and if you're kind of like stuck in that same spot, it's going to pass you by. And like that thought is scary, but I mean it's just kind of like what it is, I guess. And then it's funny because I realized like I didn't say my negative traits earlier, so I guess that's so that's like one of them. Like I'm trying to think. I'm stubborn. I would say opinionated is not a bad trait, but it depends. Right. I've gotten tinted with it before, so I'll say that one's a double-edged sword. And I'd also say that it was kind of like the putting my needs second, or it was my lack of vulnerability that is like one of my negative traits. Because for a lot of times, because like I had that hard issue with self-image where I did want to be that nurturing person, but I couldn't understand why people didn't know who I was at the end of the day. And it's because, you know, if you take care of everybody, there's no way for them to take care of you. They don't know any of your vulnerabilities. So I was running into this issue where like I was feeling like nobody around me was understanding me. And so that was really hard to kind of have to sit with myself and be like, oh, people don't understand you because of you. Not because they're not trying or because like you're just not giving them enough opportunities to do so. So yeah, I'll say that. Like have more walls up than I would have probably said I had in the past.
I can agree with a lot of what she's saying and appreciate that.
Yeah, no. And crap, I had a thought and I lost it. Oh, it's something about you saying it's a double-edged sword. I feel like that's actually what happens with a lot of traits that we see ourselves in, because like I said, me being hard-headed itself, I'm like, depending on who's on the receiving end, will find it a negative trait, because I honestly do think for the most part people want to do the best that they can, but their best, kind of like how you were saying, look, how you were saying you wanted to be, you're dealing with a hero complex. What if you're the hero, but you're the hero in your story, but you're the villain in someone else's story?
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. So, like one of the things in recovery that we use as like a primary tool is there's literally a list called 36 thinking errors and 19 tactics to avoid change, and it's this list that's condensed down from this study that these psychologists did with folks who were long-term incarcerated for like serious violent crimes, and studied these people over a long time, and basically took tendencies and character traits and distilled them down into thinking errors and tactics to avoid change. And it's basically like I can look at this list and recognize, okay, this is like unhealthy thinking, or I might say this is criminal thinking, or in my case, like this is addict thinking, right? And so like for one, once I understand the list, the other thing I see is everyone struggles with these things. Like me in my addiction, like I struggled with these way more, or a better way to say it was these things like ruled me way more. Whereas like the average person that's relatively healthy, they're not probably ruled by them, but they can still get there. But the other thing, this to your point, Julian, is almost every single one of these traits, and these traits go into like some pretty dark stuff, and yet almost every single one, there's a couple where it's like there's no healthy version, but most of them, it's like these are the dark side of a totally reasonable way of doing things. And or even, honestly, like even what you were saying, Tyler, about like I recognize as I'm maybe getting, I'm putting words in your mouth, but like as I'm getting healthier, like I start to see some walls, or I'm starting to build up some walls. And of course, like there's a lot of healthiness in that, but of course I could go too far, right? And now I'm closing myself off. Now I'm an island. Now I'm isolating, and I'm not going to be vulnerable to anyone. So it's just crazy that I this is my personal belief, is I do think like my natural tendency as a human is, if I don't have healthy balance, if I don't have healthy infrastructure, like I will just tend to get less healthy over time. But the pendulum will swing in different directions. It'll look different, but if I don't have like healthy people in my life and healthy feedback and stuff, I'm just going to tend to get less healthy. I don't think I tend to get healthier just by accident.
That's true, though. I think that's like such a good point to bring up too, that like being a healthy human being is work, it's effort. And like, and not only just like, oh, I did it once and I worked on it. It's like constantly, like even stuff where I'll have to even now be like, oh, I'm putting a wall up. Why am I putting a wall up? Like, there's no reason to do that. Or why am I like overthinking? Because that was like a big thing about it. Like when you're a person, at least for me, because I'm like a caring person, I like to give, but then like you overgive, and then that can have its own negative things where like now you've built up like a weird resentment that has nothing to do with what the person has done for you or anything like that. It's just the fact that you gave more than you realized you were giving, and that's your own problem for the most part. Like there's some degree of like they let you overgive, but then there's also like you have to recognize yourself and be like you also didn't have to do those things. So I think like even like I had friends who when I got to college, I hadn't even thought about the fact that I was needed to work on my people pleasing tendencies or anything like that. But they had gotten to the certain point where they were like, oh, I think I'm like trauma dumping on you. Like two of my friends said that to me. They were like, I think I'm trauma dumping on you. I think I need to stop doing that as much, and I want to make sure I'm being a better friend to you. And it was so weird to me because I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm totally fine. Like, I love hearing like what's going on in y'all's lives. But then I realized what it was that I'm so used to not creating spaces in friendships where I can also tell them what's going on with me, that I didn't realize that they were just telling me everything. And like they recognized it was unhealthy before I did. And so I appreciate the fact that I have people in my life who are working on themselves so much that it's helping me grow. And so you kind of have to like meet each other. And that's a really cool thing to like kind of see in your relationships.
Yeah.
That sparked two ideas in my head. First, I want to get back to the Logan point about too much. I was thinking too much of anything is could be bad. Like the saying is, an apple a day keeps a doctor away, right? But just a random fact. I think it was like if you eat 1,000, mind you, this is a really absurd number, but if you like eat 1,000 apples in like an hour or something, it would actually kill you because of the sulfur from the apple skin and everything. But going back to your point, Tyler, I also think that's also one of my negative tendencies is that I stay in situations way longer than I need to be. And that's due to the fact that I think I see the good or I see like the positive outcome of things. And it's just, I'm like, if I just do this one extra thing or do this another thing or do this other thing, I can, because I never try to get people to change their mind per se, but get them to realize to like, all right, this is a problem. This is something like but at a point, it's like you can only point out something so many times before it's like, okay, what are you doing here? Because if someone wanted to see it, they would see it at some point. So I think that's another. I stick around way longer than than I need to. And then with all this is I don't know how this question is going to come off, but another question that I thought of that I kind of was scrolling through Instagram and everything is how, I don't know how to put this completely. Let's actually, let me read it and see. There's two. Do you want to go into the future? Or do you want to go into the past? Because there's two scenarios that I have for which direction you want to go.
You asking me?
Yeah, just what? Because
let's go
I have two extra questions.
Let's go to the past.
Let's go to the past. All right, cool. Let's go to the past. And is there what lesson or words of wisdom would you give your past self?
So I get asked this question a lot because I'll approach it from different. I'll approach it kind of from different angles. Basically, what I never ever try to do in this imaginary scenario is I don't try to imagine like what words of wisdom could I say that would get old Logan to not make the stupid, hurtful, destructive choices. Because I don't know that those words existed. What I would do is honestly just I would want to be like, dude, you have people in your life. And I did know this at the time, but I took it for granted. Like, dude, you've got people in your life that love you, that are praying for you, that are crying because of the destructive choices you're making. And when you are ready to embrace the good pain of going through recovery, of working on yourself, of addressing your issues, they will be there to love you and support you. Like they're there. So you can continue causing more tears for them, or you can actually do the work. Because I had people, give me good advice. I had people ask me tough questions, and I wasn't there for that. My tendency throughout my life has been, I will play in the fire and I'll know the right moment to jump out before I get burned. And not only did I try to do that, I also was, putting my family in the fire too, right? For a lot of years. But I don't think there was any like magical advice that I can like, oh, if you could just know that. I knew that I was making terrible choices, and it wasn't enough to know that I was making bad choices, But just to emphasize to myself that how important infrastructure is, and that like there are healthy people out there that love me.
That's good. I like that.
Did we ever ask you how you got past that? Like how you got what was like the thing that made you change then with all this negativity that you
Yeah.
surrounded yourself?
And so like obviously, you know, I've talked with you guys offline about a little bit of my story and stuff like that. But I mean, just like the super 30,000-foot view is for years I had a sexual addiction where I was not only addicted to pornography, but this also got to the point where I was having sexual affairs with other women. I was hiring prostitutes, phone sex. I mean, it was, and this was all, or this was almost all while I'm married and as a dad. Like it started before then, but most of this was, most of the darkest years of my life was I'm coming home into a beautiful wife that loves me and that's doing everything she can to be a great wife. I'm coming home to beautiful baby boys, and I'm coming home to like all these reminders of why I shouldn't be doing the things that I'm doing. And yet, you know, and I had other addictions, I had other stuff going on, but like that was the primary thing was, I had trained myself to essentially, I mean, I use this word, I don't shy away from it. I trained myself to be a predator. I wasn't on a list, you know, but I was somebody who did whatever I could to take whatever I could take from basically every woman in my path. And it's a terrible way to live, but that's how I interacted with the world around me. That's how I interact with other people. And so that's the context. And so, you know, hated my life. I hated the fact that like that I was married and I had kids, not because of them, but I hated the fact that they had me. Because I've always valued family. I've always valued fatherhood and valued relationships. And so like the fact that I'm this terrible monster of a person and these kids have me as their dad, I wanted nothing more than to not exist. You know, the fact that I watched my wife be everything she could be to be the best wife possible, and she got stuck with me. I wanted to just, you know, it's like, God, just kill me. Like, because I hated that was my life, that was their life. So living in that really, really dark place, but not feeling like I knew, I didn't know how to do things differently. I tried to just stop, you know, I'm just not going to do it, but I didn't have healthy infrastructure set in place. And so what finally happened was in the summer of 2015, my wife, Carrie, so she's a stay-at-home mom. She's, you know, the last several years, as I've confessed these things to her, and she's in survival mode. She's trying to take care of the kids. She's trying to take care of the house. Like she doesn't know how to respond, but she finally did something different, which was she stood up to her abuser, you know, and she said, if you don't get serious help, if you don't get serious change, then I will leave. You're going to lose me and the kids. And I believed her. So that ultimatum was huge because that was the first time where I mean, I had experienced the pain and the despair and the hopelessness and all these negative things, but now it was super tangible. Now it was like I'd already signed away my future. Like I knew that there would never be a good life for me. There would never be a good future for me. But if I can try to hang on to my family for a little bit longer, I wanted to do that. And so I started to reach out to recovery groups and different infrastructure resources. And to be honest, I mean, it was a whole lot of floundering. That was in the summer of 2015. My sobriety in terms of no sexual behavior with other women, no pornography, no masturbation. That was May. So May 19th was the last day I acted out. So almost a year of floundering, of up and down. And I would have a little bit of sobriety for a few days, a few weeks, and then I would fall off the wagon. And it's just like this whole thing. But finally started to get some traction, got into basically a voluntary house arrest program from May of 2016 to May of 2018. And my wife got into sexual betrayal trauma healing. Shortly after I got into recovery, she got into her betrayal trauma recovery. And recovery's never left our life. So I now lead men struggling with sexual addiction. She leads a group for women struggling or that have been hurt by betrayal trauma. And yeah, this is a giant part of our lives.
I have a question for you actually.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that negative self-talk aspect is what drove, because addiction's one of those things where they say it's always a disease. It's gonna, I don't want to
I
say
got thoughts
it's
on that.
always gonna manifest itself, but it's gonna maybe show itself in different sort of ways in your life at certain points. But do you feel like it was exasperated by like negative self-talk and like negative self-image?
Negative self-image, yes. I don't know that it would be honest to say negative self-talk, just because I don't know that there was, because I obviously negative self-talk, that we can use that term, and sometimes we might use it to almost represent just our image of ourselves. But obviously, as we were talking about earlier, like it also means literal talk, right? Literally the things that I say to myself, the things I say to others, the things that I journal about, like that kind of. So like I don't know how much self-talk I was doing, but I definitely had a terrible negative self-image. And to some extent it's a chicken or the egg thing, because like before too long I'm viewing myself as this awful, terrible person who, and I could make the argument that that was accurate. And yet it also almost made it to where it's like, it's like if you read a prophecy about yourself that you're going to do terrible things, and that is kind of a tricky thing, right? So it's like, okay, I'm this awful person. All I do is hurt people. All I do is cheat on my wife. All I do is, okay, well, the natural result of that is I guess I'm going to keep doing these things because this is who I am. So yeah, it took recovery. It took God putting people in my life. It took having other people, kind of rip apart my exoskeleton of how I dealt with life through recovery and through this program. It took all of that for me to start to rework having a healthy image of myself. But here's the trick: is it wasn't, not that you're saying this, but like somebody might listen to what I just said, especially if they're not familiar with recovery, and almost like, okay, so Logan went from viewing himself as a monster to viewing himself as a good person, and there was a chasm in terms of time and energy of work that needed to be done. It wasn't like a toggle switch. It was, I had to get ripped apart and like broken down and destroyed in a lot of ways, and then slowly rebuilt brick by brick of like, what does it even look like to be a healthy person? What do I even want to be? How do I want to treat people? And that, yeah, I needed to get sober. I needed to stop doing these bad things. But that was just the beginning. Sobriety was not the finish line. It was just a means to the end. The end being a continual end, which is like, I want to be able to love people and treat people with love. And I want to be able to look my wife in the eye and not have a secret life and not have shame. I want to be able to look my boys in the eye and know that I'm not perfect, but I don't have a double life, that I don't have shame because of all this stuff that they're going to find out about one day. It's like, no, I can just look at people and be authentic. I don't even remember the question that you asked. Or was just a self-image.
No, it's okay, because
Yeah,
I legitimately,
chicken or the egg, I think, but it played a part.
like, this is totally fine though, honestly, because now I have like another question that I was like just curious
Go
about.
right ahead.
So, did you see signs of it before you got married?
Yes and no. I didn't. So I I I looked at porn from time to time, and I always felt bad about that, and I didn't like that I did that. I remember talking to Carrie back when we first started dating, of like, yeah, I sometimes look at porn. I don't like that. I'm trying to stop. And as far as I knew, that was an honest assessment of like where I was at, because all my childhood, and when I say childhood, like really like all the way up until I was an adult, like all through my teen years, I was insecure. I was very shy around girls, not other people generally, but around girls my age, I was very shy. So I didn't have hardly any experience of interacting with girls on any sort of level like this until I was about 18 years old. That's when I like started to experiment with like, let me flirt and see what kind of response I get. Let me see what kind of attention I can get. And then like the first time I cheated on anyone was with Carrie. Was when we were, I don't remember if we were dating or engaged, but I mean, it was before we got married. That was the first time I ever cheated on anyone. So like, And even then, I felt terrible about it. I still lied to myself and kind of sort of believed the lie of like, okay, this is terrible, but at least I certainly won't do this once I'm married because we'll be living together. And, you know, I like, there's no way I would do this stuff ever again. And then we got married, and then I did it again, and then I did it again. So the best way for me to answer it is, in hindsight, 100%, I could definitely see those things, those seeds being planted. At the time, not really, not until I, you know, started to be sexually unfaithful. But when I knew, even in the moment, not just talking about hindsight, but even in the moment when I knew I had a serious problem, that was about a year or 6 months after we got married. When it's like, okay, we've been married, we're pregnant already with our first son, and I'm still doing this. Like, I don't know if this is going to stop.
I want to speak on something. I really do appreciate you sharing your story because I think it's a more common story than people will like admit to. Just so I think that's a very open and honest thing that you said, like being awkward around women, not really knowing. I think that's especially as a guy that could easily be a common trait. So I feel like it would just hearing it would actually help someone not go down the same path, if that makes sense. Because you were clearly saying like it's clearly wrong, but it took time. Time and an ultimatum for you to really change your ways. So maybe it will help someone to say like, all right, I see the beginning stages of this. Let me stop it. Let me nip it in the bud before it gets worse.
It's interesting to me too because I feel like you always hear that rhetoric of like once a cheater, always a cheater, and like things like that. And so it's very interesting to me to know that y'all found like you and your wife, honestly, because I feel like, you know, shared effort really. You've like found a path forward past that because I think it's very easy to let a situation just deteriorate and get to the worst of the worst and all those things. And I can appreciate, at least in your story, that once you got that ultimatum, it really woke you up. Because I think sometimes people are so, like, maybe the way their relationship with addiction is just so different that even that ultimatum wouldn't have done anything for them, you know? And so even that in itself is very, I don't know, impactful for me to hear too as well. Just kind of like listening to your story. So yeah, I appreciated that.
And I will just say, in terms of like the once cheater always a cheater. So we could do a whole episode just literally on that aspect of things in terms of like, can an addict change and how do you rebuild trust and all these different things.
Yeah.
Because on one hand, I would say, generally speaking, total straw man. But like, if somebody is saying once a cheater always a cheater, they're probably saying that from a bit of an unhealthy perspective, you know, whether that's because they've been hurt and so they're it's kind of lashing out. I've definitely seen a lot of that. Carrie's seen a lot of that. I think there's some truth to that. But there's also a lot of truth to that statement of once cheater, always cheater. So like, you know, when we hear the term recidivism rate, we think of, you know, somebody going back to prison, right? But that term, in terms of addiction, I think it's a good way to look at it. Is like, okay, you know, somebody gets into a program, they get some sobriety. What are the odds of them going back to that old life? I'm not going to throw a bunch of numbers at you. Primarily, I mean, partially because I don't know. I know some numbers, but I don't know all the numbers. But also, just like numbers are relative. But I will tell you, if you look at the recidivism rate of addiction in general, of somebody going back to their addiction in any addiction, it's depressing, it's scary, and I don't say this lightly what I'm about to say, but I mean it. Like, if somebody's in a serious relationship with somebody who has an addiction, it's probably one of the biggest, maybe the biggest red flag, you know, of anything. Because the odds of that person going back to their addiction or a different destructive addiction, the odds are very high. Now, we could use the term addiction to describe different things. Like I could say I have a phone addiction and I just can't stay off my phone. And that's a real thing. Like there truly is, like there's dopamine hits and but the destructive fallout from that is likely to be less than if I have a cocaine addiction, right? But if we're talking about like a destructive addiction that has harmed people physically, whether it's a substance abuse, sexual addiction, anything, the odds of that person going back to that addiction is really, really high, even if they've got 6 months, a year of sobriety. And I say a lot to say this, like the number that you generally see talking to sexual addiction therapists, I have a lot of experience with myself and with other people, but also just people that have more experience than I do, people that have studied this stuff for a living. It's 3 to 6 years of active recovery before that person is unlikely. Like it would be surprising if they went back to addiction. So unless I've been in recovery and healthy living for 3 to 6 years, I am likely to go back to my addiction. And I will tell you, just from my own experience, that feels about right, because like it took about 2 years almost before I remember having the thought, this is emotional, this is feelings, but still, like I remember having the thought of like, I don't think I have to go back to porn. I don't think I ever have to look at porn again. I don't think I have to ever have an affair again. This was like, I was almost graduated from my program before I could finally even think those statements and honestly be like, I think those statements are true. I think I believe those statements. So on one hand, yeah, like it totally is not always the case that once a cheater, always a cheater, but the statistics would bear out, yeah, if somebody has been unfaithful multiple times, they probably will continue to do that.
Okay, I have a question for you. This is probably gonna be our last one because we're getting close to the end here. But do you feel like if someone is going to enter a relationship with someone who is recovering from addiction, that they should wait that 3-year to 6-year period to even be in a relationship with them?
I'll put it this way. So I have a sister who is single, and if she words, and I don't have like a big controlling, like, let me vet all your boyfriends, but like if she were to be like, hey, here's this dude, and like, you know, we're pretty close. If he was less than 2 years away from any addiction, for whatever my advice is worth, and she does, you know, she puts some weight in that, I would very strongly counsel her away from having a serious relationship with that person, 100%. And
You
2 years,
definitely-
100%. And I guess it would be a case by case basis. Like I'll tell you, this is a specific, like, tangible thing that I would want to know, so that hopefully this can be actionable for anyone listening or for any. Is I would definitely want to know, like, how far removed is this person from their addiction, right? In terms of number of years. But sobriety, like I alluded to earlier, sobriety itself is not the finish line. Sobriety is just a number, right? It's a thing. It's a way that I can quantify how long I've been a different person, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I've been a healthy person for that amount of time. There's the term dry drunk, you know, to describe somebody that's not an alcoholic. They're not drinking anymore, but they've not worked on the unhealthy tendencies and stuff, you know, within themselves that might have caused them to drink in the first place. And so they're a dry drunk. Right. That same thing happens with sexual addiction, with any addiction. So I would want to know, first and foremost, yes, how far removed are they? But I'd also want to know, like, well, what has their process been? Like, have they been through a rigorous recovery program where they've worked on their crap? You know, they've worked through their stuff. They've gone through inventory and amends. It doesn't have to be a 12-step program, but like, have they gone through a rigorous program? Are they still involved in recovery? It doesn't have to mean that they're going to 1 or 2 meetings a week, but like, this is one specific thing that I personally, to put it back myself and away from this imaginary boyfriend of my sister's, that I would personally, I have multiple guys in my life that know all my stuff, that ask me questions at any given time, and I respect them enough. I put a lot of weight into what they say, and I will answer any question they have for me. I've got two guys specifically that we're in a group chat every single day about just life stuff. There's multiple guys that know my things, but like that's never going to go away. I will never not have people, at least one or two, that know all my stuff. And so, yeah, if somebody's like, they're thinking about dating or they're dating, and like, yeah, okay, they've got 3 years of sobriety, but they haven't been to a meeting in a year. They don't have sort of regular interaction with people that are from a recovery structure or a therapist or something like that. That would be a big red flag to me.
Well, thank you. I honestly, that's information that I personally would not have gotten any other way. And so I would hope that it would help another listener who might be like experiencing this or is wanting to be in a relationship with somebody who is going through recovery.
So I'll say this just real quickly, and I'll shut up. But
No, you're
like, I mean, I meant every word that I said, and yet at the same time, like recovery people, when I say that, like people that recovery is a pillar of their life. Like they have been through the crap in life. They've been through a lot of healing too.
Yeah.
Those are truly I would say generally, those are the healthiest, most enjoyable people to spend time with because they're authentic. They recognize the blessings in life. Those are incredible people to spend time with. So the idea of like, again, like going back to my sister, I'll pick on her. The idea of like her meeting somebody and being in a serious relationship with somebody who's been through serious recovery and who has spent some years working on themselves, that could be one of the best possible people for her to be in a relationship with. But I would hope for her sake that it would be somebody that has truly, they've invested some serious time, some serious energy. Because, yeah, you don't want somebody that's been through the crap, but they've barely worked on the healing or they haven't worked on the healing at all.
No, you definitely gave me some things to think about. I could honestly, if we didn't ask for only an hour and 15 minutes of your time, I would still want to have this conversation because you definitely said some things that I'm going to listen back to and like definitely reach out to. But like I said, that we only asked for an hour and 15 of your minutes. We only asked for an hour and 15 of your time. But like I mentioned before, the floor is yours. You can share whatever you want to share. So the floor is yours.
I appreciate it. I'll be pretty skinny on this. I mean, it truly, the reason why, you guys and I first, sat down virtually and talked a couple months ago. The reason why we're talking right now, the reason why I didn't have an Instagram account until this year, the reason why I'm on Instagram is specifically and only because I know what it is like to live in like the darkest of darkness, to be trapped in this cave of addiction, to feel hopeless and to hate my life. And I know what it is to experience the healing, and the restoration of a life, of a marriage, of a family. And so whatever benefit somebody can take from this, whether it's an actionable little nugget or, maybe they're struggling or a loved one is struggling, or maybe none of those things apply. And it's just, hey, a story of redemption, right? To give you a little dose of optimism because that redemption does happen. I just want to put it out there. I'm not here to preach at anyone. I'm a Christian. So I 100%, I give all glory to God for him giving me, and my family like this grace and this blessing to be able to experience this. And if anybody, wants to hear more about this, about my story, about recovery tools, specific, actionable, hey, what does it look like to live inside the mind of an addict? What does it look like to use recovery tools? What things do I need to watch out for? Betrayal trauma, all of this stuff related to sexual addiction and recovery. Give me a follow on Instagram. That's the best way to get in contact with me or to see more content at No Longer in Bondage. You can search for Logan Hufford. I think I'm the first one to come up. It's not that common of a name, but No Longer in Bondage is my handle, and it's periods in between the words. No Longer in Bondage. And that when like I said, I never had Instagram before, but like when I was planning out because I started being on podcasts first, and I didn't have a social media for this, and everyone's like, well, where do they find you? And I don't do this for a business. There's no like, I'm not funneling people to sell anything, but I decided to do an Instagram just so that people could have a landing page, so to speak. But that's been a beautiful thing. It's been incredible the way that God's opened doors through Instagram with people all over the world. I mean, like the first 2 people to message me that I didn't know were from London and Florida, and the third dude was from Africa, like literally all across the globe. And yet all 3 of these people are like, dude, I've been in those shoes. Or in some cases, like, I'm in those shoes, and I didn't think other people struggled with it. And then here's the crazy thing is one of the last people that's reached out is actually somebody who lives in Alaska, who I've actually met before. We weren't friends. We didn't really know each other, but he followed me on Instagram and didn't know any of this stuff. And then he's like, dude, and he shared his story with me. And like, so I had met him before, but he would not have reached out. We would not have interacted if it weren't for Instagram. And so it's like, it's been a beautiful thing just to try to share this light. And as I always put it, it's like just to show other people that there is a way out of the cave, that they're not alone. But there's a way out. They don't have to stay trapped.
Say it one more time.
Yep. So my Instagram handle is at no longer in bondage. So no.longer.in.bondage. And again, if you search on Instagram for Logan Hufford, I think I'm the first one to come up.
Yeah, I would definitely have put that in the description, so if anyone ever sees this, they have that direct access to you. For that is definitely going to be there. But thank you so much. I don't have any expectations for these episodes, but I really appreciate you sharing. Before I let you get out of here and we end things, I just need to do the thing, and that's it. But I also say, with tying it with everything in, anyone who listens to this, can you please fill out the audience survey that's also going to be in the description, and listen to the outro. Here's the thing. It actually comes from Charlemagne the God from the Breakfast Club, which I find kind of fitting with the topic that we talked about and what history I know that people have with him. But the quote is, give yourself the love you want others to give you.
Yeah.
That's it. So with that all said, don't forget to ask yourself, ask others, and never stop asking questions. See you.
Bye.